we'll go with, that's the best I could do. Bohemian Rhapsody. Random Rockers. Had to see it. I'm kind of a music channel too. You know. Yeah. Best I can do about that. So, don't have any Queen albums, so I can't say much on it. So I'm right off the bat, I'm telling you, not the biggest of Queen fans outside of what most people would have just, most casual listeners, usually the ones that wind up just hearing them on the radio and being like, I think one point with the band I had, sore subject, we were thinking of Fat Bottom Girls. I mean, it's, even though that may not fly entirely nowadays, but eh. Whatevs on that, I guess. I mean, don't at me, Me Too movement. Anyway, as far as Bohemian Rhapsody is concerned, there are people that are praising this thing, and then there's like a couple I've known of that are kind of about it. And the is, well, I don't know. I may lean more as mostly the ones that are kind of bitching about this not being as true, much of a true story, which I almost understand the gripes about it because of the fact that, yeah, there are some liberties kind of taken. And yes, the way it's kind of done is considered in the formulaic or generic aspect of what you consider a biopic. And that's kind of what or at least a music-based biopic. And there is some aspects of it that are there, but even with that being said, it's still entertaining for what it is. Rami Malek does the best with what material he is given, and as far as the usage of the so-called flamboyancy, that seems to be kind of not what Freddie Mercury actually is off stage, but in terms of that on stage presence, it works. It works well, even though most of it is clearly lip syncing. I figured as much. Freddie's kind of has his own unique voice, and I didn't at all expect Rami Malek to pull off something like that himself. Though it's not like maybe he came close, I guess, in some parts, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not, at least during certain parts of the film that aren't actually considered legitimately live performance. I'm not sure. But for that, it's not bad at all. I would go as far as to say, yeah, it's good. I'm not going to say it's great, but for being considerably in that generic aspect, it is fine. The best parts that are the most genuine and seem the least superficial, to some extent, is somewhat the chemistry with Rami Malek and everyone else playing their parts in the band. And the actors themselves were perfectly cast and looked pretty close to the band members themselves, or at least the living band members. Though I feel like the full flamboyancy thing is really more the fact that I think the band members, given that they are involved in production, might be starting to gain some sense of Alzheimer's or dementia, I'm thinking. Or maybe they might be possibly showing signs, because if that is the case, I'm starting to think they're starting to mix Freddie with Adam Lambert at this point. Because he's like legit flamboyant as far as I know. Or at least he's starting to show himself off that way. So, and I'm not even a huge fan on him. I mean, I think he was one of those. I think the season he was on, he might have been the idol contestant I might have been more for, because he was more considered a rocker, I guess, at the time. I'm not really sure on that. But, I mean, he's okay. Apparently he just did pretty well with them, so to each its own. I really did dig this. I mean, knowing what I've known because of certain people that some of those who didn't like it via Double Toasted or even Real Rejects for that matter. I get it. And the guy who wound up filling in for Bryan Singer that tried to fill it, to fix this whole, it basically kind of sort of became a Zack Snyder leaving Joss Whedon trying to fix whatever they could with Justice League situation, but what we got, yet I didn't mind what we got with Justice League. And I feel like the same thing can be said with this. And given that it is technically a biopic, and usually those are more loosely based than actually based on true story, so this is really more a loose adaptation, a loosely based sort of way of more of the story of Freddie Mercury than that of Queen themselves. And they weren't really sure which one to go with, and they just had to go with this generic formula just to make it fit and make it work as cohesive as they possibly could, even though it does kind of seem to be more of a collision. But but not enough that it wasn't considered a complete train wreck necessarily, at least not enough to not fit in with the generic or formulaic aspect of a biopic of this particular style of biopics, of music biographical style films. Even though there are some far more superior ones that are far more recommended and enjoyable, and do certain things that allow it to seem off from the beaten path of a generic biopic, which is, of course, I believe it's Rain of Fire, or the one for Johnny Cash, and more Johnny Cash, so Johnny Cash, kind of, sort of, Gene Carter. That one's good. That one's definitely good. Damn good. This one, it's fine. I wasn't huge on Queen. And I know some people complaining about, some things not being mentioned. There's so much you can fit in here anyway. And one that I think even moviegoers would have probably wanted is that maybe knew about it was, why did they tackle the soundtrack for Flash Gordon? Yet alone, some people, another cult classic. Speaking of another cult classic film, why not? Well, of course, given the time frame that they put it in, there was no way they were going to get to the Highlander one, really. So, and not as many people talk about that one, aside from maybe the one song that they would use for the TV series. I think it's called Princess of the Universe. I don't know. I'm not even sure if that was actually in the Flash Gordon one. I'm not sure. I do, of course, the smartest thing they could do is at least tackle their magnum opus, that is Night of the Opera. And they did. I didn't really think that they tackled a disco record, but apparently the album that has Another One Bites the Dust, apparently a classic, especially amongst my own household, since my dad kind of that's probably the one song from Queen my dad actually likes. And I have an uncle who basically hates Queen because of my family's of a religious household, so is part of that in the Catholic. So yeah, the whole gay thing kind of, especially with the whole AIDS virus issue that would plague Freddie Mercury. Sorry about that. I could see why that's a little bit of a bother for some people. So, but yeah, I personally enjoyed this film. So, for what it is, though, I don't see how it can be possible to fix this. It's a shame because they had to put it on Bryan Singer, and given the way reception on how this film is critically, as opposed to, though I would say, given that critically at the moment it's at I think a 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. I feel like it should sit at 60. I think it's better that it sits at 60 because it deserves to at least be certified fresh at the lowest possible way you could. If anything, maybe give it maybe a 1 or 2% more. I'm not on that. I'm not sure how else to put it. Audiences like myself are chewing this up. I've enjoyed what I got out of it. despite, you know, the facts of how some things do come off a little like it was just kind of there for dramatized effect, like most biopics do, superficially and here and there. Though some do feel genuine, more so or less the relationship with him and that Freddie had with the one woman that he was engaged to. That kind of was his wife, I think. I'm not sure. Or was supposed to be. And before he officially made him. And that whole reveal to him and her, just kind of with him coming out, was honestly was interesting. And I think from that, it seems, I didn't mind the pacing of it. I'm kind of slow myself, so it worked out that way. And I was fine with what we got out of it. I definitely wish there was more they could have done with that, and definitely could have handled certain things better. I find it hilarious that they chose, of all people, just for irony's sake, to have Mike Myers in this film after, and given that there is a history behind the whole thing, given, you know, Mike Myers' bigger claim to fame through SNL's skit with Wayne's World becoming a film, and how he used that in the film, and how how Mike Myers himself had a certain love for Queen, and he wanted Bohemian Rhapsody, and that kind of really was what really catapulted and boosted that up, and I think is what eventually made it more of a #1 hit. I'm not sure I agree hit than anything, and probably is what actually made people pay attention to Queen as far more. In fact, it was even more so Freddie Mercury gaining some sense of approval before he had while nearly on his deathbed, from what happened with him and the whole AIDS virus. The band never even knew about it. Live Aid happened long before he got AIDS. So that's kind of over dramatization. Despite all that, I really did, despite all those things, despite maybe some ways they kind of came up with the song thing and the formula of that, I did enjoy what we got. And, you know, overall, this film rocks. I really enjoyed this film. No, actually, you know what? I wouldn't say this. You know what? Thumbs up is actually a better way to put it. I don't know why I said rocks. But anyway, in its own right, I guess it rocks. But it's really more of a thumbs up, if we're being honest. You know, for reasons. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, if anything, the performance aspect is what is going to probably give Sammy Rami Malek, I don't know why I did that, performance as Freddy for what he needed to do during the performances, worked fine. Worked really well. Dean Sinner, the guy that replaced him, that's supposed to be doing one for Elton John, apparently. I don't know how people will feel about his portrayal. Hopefully Elton John one will be good. I don't know. I might talk about that one if I do see it when it comes out. We'll see about that. Well, what did you guys think about Bohemian Rhapsody? Leave a comment below. Let me know. As always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I'll see you in the next vid. Eventually, I'll get to some albums again. Right now, it's just kind of going to be Schmodown for a while. Kind of going to sort of try to get involved in hunting. If not, I'll probably be able to pull out a couple albums here and there. One that came out literally over a week or two ago that I really want to get into watching. So, yeah. Anyway, take care, y'all. Yeah.